I call to order the Monday, March 14, 2016 legislative meeting at Swarthmore Borough Council. All members are present. Is the mayor? Is the mayor? Is there any public comment this evening? There is no public comment by the host of Swarthmore who are present here this evening. I would entertain a motion for approval of the council meeting minutes of our meetings of February 8, 2016 and March 7, 2016.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have one, what might seem to be a niggling suggested change, since it purports to quote me from the minutes of the March 7 meeting under discussion of aging in place task force report. And in the final sentence, it says President Grove noted that the recommendation in the task force report related to revisions of the borough zoning code will be referred to the Planning Commission and Planning and Zoning Committee of Borough Council. What I said would the report would be available to was Planning and Zoning Committee of Council and to the Planning Commission. So first, at this point, I did not say at that point, it may happen that they were being referred both to the Planning Commission and Planning and Zoning Committee of Borough Council, and I named them in reverse order because the first order of business for further consideration is in our Planning and Zoning Committee, and it can then refer matters on our behalf to the Planning Commission. But subject to that, if just in the minutes as there we have before us, if just the order of the Planning Commission and Planning and Zoning Committee of Borough Council can be reversed, I'd appreciate it.
If you want to change refer to?
No, that's okay. Does anybody else have any suggested changes or corrections or amendments to either set of minutes?
No.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of those meetings, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as circulated, subject to that one correction. Next is a report from the Environment Committee.
No report this time.
And from the Finance Committee, Michael?
Yeah, just quickly on the financial report through the month of February 2016. Just a quick comment. I mean, the revenues are slightly above what they were a year ago, and so are the expenditures, but really nothing to comment on as it relates to both of those, unless there's any questions. And I would just comment that the cash balance at the end of February was $349,064. Any questions on the financial report? Okay, moving on to the bills to pay, checks and wire transfers to ratify. I'd like to make a motion to approve bills to pay totaling $315,848.31 and wire transactions totaling $3,998.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any question about any of the items on the bill list or the items to pay? All those approving the payment of those items on the bills to pay and wire transfers, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Payment is approved.
I did want to point out a check on here. There's a large expenditure on here to Eagle truck equipment for $205,000. That is for a very large new composter at the leaf site. We're sharing this machine with another Providence Township. The actual purchase price is about $465, no, maybe $480. And got a nice trade-in on the old machine of about $80,000, and even better, we have a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection for 90% of the cost. So the cost for this machine will be for both Nether Providence and for us $17,000. So we have to pay it first, then we get the money back. That's a big expense that will be recaptured.
Okay.
So Jane, when we were talking about this when we were doing the budget cycle, we were saying we're going to have this expense, but we hope to have that grant. Has that grant been?
It's all approved, but you have to spend the money and then you get it back.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else? I need to go back under the President's part of the agenda to the reference to Implementation Committee Aging in Place Task Force. Excuse me for skipping. Since last week, I've met with a number of people about the re-implementation committee and persons who might serve on it. It's an important committee, and I think it will function once it's fully peopled differently than the task force did. Because the purpose of the task force was to gather information and consider information and then to report on it, whereas the function of the implementation committee is to actually do things and try to cause them to happen. And so a smaller committee is useful, but its membership is critical. That is, I think it's important that every member it has is a doer rather than a considerer. And no offense to the task force, but its function is just very different. And we have, I think, 3 members from the task force who are willing to serve going forward. Mr. Smucky has agreed, fortunately for me and for us all, to serve as council's member on the committee. I think the outline, the parsing that Ross did and gave to us last week, and he's tweaked it since then, of breaking down all of the various recommendations of the task force and putting them to the extent they can be put under a committee and an outline, has done that for us and has revised it since. If he feels it appropriate at some point, he can circulate to us all the revised version. I think Antor Grosso will be serving, and Lyndon will be serving, and Kerry will be serving, but we need some more, and suggestions have been made that if others here, it's not something I want to, it's not a secret, but nevertheless I don't want to advertise in the Swarthmorian that we want more members for the implementation committee, but rather, without regard to age, I think Tim thought it would be useful to have somebody from the senior group, or I guess it was Ann did, and was looking to that group for a possible person. But if you have suggestions, without regard to age, of individuals you think might be of a kind that would work best with the others on this committee and doing what it needs to do, such recommendations would be welcome. I would ask, just so that we can nudge this ball forward almost immediately, I would ask the Public Works Committee, Public Works, Parks and Recreation Committee, and the Public Safety Committee to look at those items in the report that I think Russ appropriately put under your committees, to take a look at them, begin to discuss them. Some things I know and you know that one of the recommendations, for example, was sidewalks on Riverview. Well, there's a whole history of why there weren't sidewalks on Riverview, and would be difficult to put sidewalks on Riverview that would not have been known to the task force. So I ask each of you to look at the report. One of the recommendations was, and I had a back and forth with Antor Gross about the desire to have more mid-block curb cuts, and I think principally out here. Because some people apparently have difficulty stepping up onto the curb. But there are now 3 curb cuts out there, one at the Methodist Church, one in front of this building, one at the corner. And if you look at each of those places, there's really has to be an apron, because each of them, I guess, has to be handicap accessible with what I call the weasel pad on it. Just a few things, if you would look at them, I don't know, and David, you probably know, and certainly the chief knows, one of the things they would like that somebody would have a record of where every old person is in the in their condition, and that the police know it and EMS know it, so they could go and know who's infirm where, and whether such a database could be created, and all the problems. We can immediately think about the problems of keeping it up to date, etc. But I'd simply ask you so that we can, not so that we can appear to paying attention to the recommendations, but can seriously look at the recommendations. And if you your committees would look at those that seem to fall under your committees over the coming months, and consistent with the other responsibilities of your committees, I'd appreciate it. I don't think that there was anything specifically put under the Environment Committee. If you want to reach out to some of the other unassigned ones, be my guest. So that's, I'm trying to push this ball forward, and others are as well and are interested in doing, but help is needed if others have suggestions as to who might provide that help in a meaningful way. That having been said, General Government Committee.
Okay. So with that, Mr. Grove, thank you, and I'm happy to take on, be the council rep to the Aging in Place Implementation Committee. And I look forward to working on that. General Government, we have consideration of Ordinance 1075 related to hours of business operation in the borough. And Jane, I guess we're ready for that? I guess
Right, so you
Yes.
can make a motion.
Okay. Does anybody need any further explanation of that? Just for the public, that's,
Parliamentary procedure, you tend to make the motion and then we discuss.
okay. So the motion
Only
is...
because I've been sober over now.
Yeah, no, thank you.
We're learning again.
So the motion is to approve the amendment to Ordinance 1075 relating to business hours of operation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now, further?
Just for explanation, we dealt with this before, and this extends the hours of operation till 2 in the morning, if I'm correct. And the motive was that we now have the inn, and they're going to be serving alcohol till 2 in the morning. They have a license to do that, and we need to be consistent with that.
And the bigger motivation actually was to exempt hotels and actually bed and breakfast from the hours of operation at all, since they're basically 24/7
Yes.
operation. So that's the second part of the ordinance.
So it includes bed and breakfast also.
And the other, I guess, pertinent timepiece is you cannot conduct business between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., which seems reasonable.
Yes.
Unless you're a hotel.
Right.
You don't have to close at 2 a.m. if you're a hotel.
In case people want to check in.
Correct.
Late is really the.
Right, the idea is, right, that's right. The idea is not that there will be activities, events at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Any questions about any of that?
Any other questions on it? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 1075 relating to business hours of operation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. The ordinance is adopted.
Okay. And then the next item is that there are 2 vacancies on the Human Relations Commission that we want to fill. And the General Government Committee has 2 candidates to fill those 2 spots. And Jane, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that we have one term ended at the end of 2015, so we're filling that spot, and it's a 3-year term. And then we have a member of the commission who served a partial term, and we have the remainder of that term to fill
Which is 2 more years, that's correct.
for 2 more years. And so we have 2 great candidates, and the General Government Committee was unanimous in feeling these would be great appointments. So the first is a reappointment, actually. Sean Eyring, am I pronouncing it? Eyring, who has been serving on the commission, and who we would propose to fill the unexpired term. And Sean, I believe, lives at 316 South Chester Road, is a very interesting person to have in our borough. She's a manager of the National Park Service. And I just think we have an interesting place where we live, where we have people who do interesting things like this. And I spoke with Sean, and our committee spoke, and she is interested in serving another term. So Sean Eyring. And then to fill the 3-year full spot is Courtney Canuck, Courtney lives at 559 Westminster Avenue and was interested in participating on the Human Relations Commission. She is an attorney. She has served in the Office of Attorney General in the state of New Jersey, and she served as a Deputy Attorney General in the Office of the Division of Child Protection and the Division of Consumer Affairs also. Seems very qualified. Moved here this past year, has a young child, and she's very eager to do this, seems very qualified, and so we would like to nominate her also.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
In case it makes its way into the papers, I think that the first individual is the superintendent,
No, that's,
is not?
That's Cindy McLeod.
that's Cindy McLeod, that's someone else.
So she is the manager of,
She's a manager in the National Park Service, and she handles resource planning and compliance,
okay,
and is working on a historic landscape preservation plan for the entire Northeast region.
okay, thank
And your
you.
boss is Cindy McLeod.
Okay, thank you, okay.
Yeah.
Any questions about any of these, either of these three? All those in favor of their appointment for the terms indicated to the Human Relations Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're appointed with appreciation.
And our meeting, I think that we will have a meeting this month, and it's next week on Monday at 8:30 in the morning, as I remember.
Okay. There are, going back to the implementation of the Aging in Place Task Force report, your parsing memorandum would in fact assign a number of those items to your own committee.
Yes.
And so, although you have the joy of being on the implementation committee, your own committee might turn its attention itself to beginning looking at a number of the items that fall within its province.
Yes.
Thank you.
And can I, one last mention, I did attend the town center meeting for the month, and just a point of interest, they said that a manager for the inn has been hired.
I would think so, wouldn't you?
60 days out.
Well, okay. Well, okay. Anything else from general government?
No.
Okay. Planning and zoning.
All right, we have resolution number 2016-02. I would like to make a motion, so I don't get all of that. I would like to make a motion that council approve this resolution to grant final land development plan approval for the proposed Swarthmore College NPPR Residence Hall.
Is there a second?
Second.
There was some mention of this last week, obviously. It's my understanding that the resolution it incorporates, and the approval incorporates the various comments that have been made by our engineer and the planning commission, so that as approved, the approval incorporates changes that have been recommended and the college has agreed to or will implement in the future if needed.
That's right. So it means that last set of plans you saw may not be the final set of plans if there are changes that have to be made in accordance with those letters.
Okay. Anything else on this? Any other questions or comments?
I will make a comment.
Okay.
And this is kind of a page out of Mr. Grove's book. I'm not going to vote against it.
The mind boggles, is it?
I'm not going to vote against it, but I do feel, and this is very personal, I guess, and I don't know if I have a lot of facts behind it, it seems very large. It seems a little outsized for where it's at relative to the existing buildings and the ball field. And it feels like somewhat of a large building fence is being built between Chester Road and the college. And I guess what struck me probably most was their private patio they're going to build, where today you can kind of watch that game from there, but in the future you won't be able to. So I don't want to fly in the face with planning and zoning, and I'm sure it's a good project, but I don't know. I don't love it.
Well, that's it. But explain
It
what
might
you're
just be
saying
an aesthetic.
about the private patio. What is that? I'm just curious.
They're kind of, I think a nice back to the dormitory that will be a kind of a space to view the ball game,
Mhm.
but it's not a public space. It's the dorm space. Understandably, it's private property, but it does not feel very communal relative to the, I guess, my opinion of town and Galen.
That would be viewing, that's sort of the outfield of the baseball field.
Yes.
It happens now also to be the outfield of the softball field, but you would go there to watch the baseball game from out there, which will
Yeah,
not.
I've cut
Which will
across
not be
there, I've
possible.
gotten across there, our families have all kind of trekked that, and they seem to be slowly making that less accessible.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily a grand plan.
And it's a place where aging men, if I'm in the right place, have
I'm
played
one of those aging men.
Aging men have played softball on Sundays for years.
Generations.
For generations.
Having played in that game many times, it's actually not in that particular location,
Is it-
but over in the outfield.
It's in right field.
Yeah, it's right field.
They
in the
may
baseball
continue to
field.
let us play baseball.
Right.
softball.
I think they will.
No, okay.
And I think the planning commission was pretty clear in its requirement that pedestrian access be maintained. So while I think it's true that what you're saying is basically only accessible from the dormitory, so that, yeah. But I do think that you'll still be able to walk through there on very safe pedestrian pathways.
We'll see.
But that's
Part of
not-
the thing that you're talking about is
yeah.
on the second floor.
No,
I mean,
that won't be
so-
accessible.
Right, I know, but
Right.
that's the space that Dave's referring to.
No, both. There was first and second floor.
The building actually takes up the good chunk of the
Yeah.
outfield fence is actually going to be formed by the, and the viewing area is on top of that space.
Right.
So it's like very hard to make that public, I think, just in terms of.
For sure.
But I think those comments would certainly be relayed to the planning commission as other projects come along, which all seem to be at the perimeter. And that's why now of the boundary between the borough and the college. And that's why council made those changes to the code so that there's more oversight over what happens in those border areas.
One further observation on that.
Sure.
My recollection was that these, and I totally get where you're coming from, Dave, I totally get that. That the college was saying that these are going to be kind of like their biggest set of suites with kitchens, and this is kind of a new thing for
It's a
them.
luxury dorm.
Yeah, well, I don't know about, they didn't say that, but they did say that they did say that it was a hope that the kids using those kitchens would come over and
Right.
shop at the co-op, which hopefully would be good for the town also, if they come over because they need food.
Well, and that was one thing that the planning commission made sure of, was that they provided pedestrian access from the dorms to the sidewalks so they could then get into town.
Well, picking up on Dave's point, it's sort of an issue which was surfaced initially with respect to the big softball scoreboard. And that is, the fact is that the college, as it expands its buildings, sort of almost for the first time is now on the perimeter of its property, where it butts up against more than has been the case in the past, where its construction has been interior to its property and has no direct impact on adjoining town property. So it's, I think, I don't know if there's a next. I guess what's the one that is being built up on Whittier Place sort of comes up against the back of some houses or near, the same. It's a different issue, but it just represents the fact that construction now, for the first time in the history of the college, at least in modern times, is sort of butting up against the edge of town and private homeowners. So, your point is always well taken. I had a few things to say over time about the inn. That all having been said, all those in favor of adopting Resolution 2016-02, granting the final land development approval for NPPR, New Dormitory, Swarthmore College, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. And does he have to say why he's recusing himself?
Well, we would make it up if he doesn't say it. So
Well, please don't make it
Yeah,
up.
check,
Yeah,
okay?
please don't make it up. I'm recusing myself because, as you all know, my wife is on the faculty at Swarthmore College.
Right. Thank you. Just on that point about development, there is coming up sometime, I think in March, is it before the Planning Commission, some further hearing on the parking lot in Cunningham Field?
It's this week. It's
Okay.
this Wednesday night.
When, so people who are interested in projects at the college which abut other properties out on this perimeter, there'll be a further hearing. There was a lot of attention paid to this a couple of years ago when various approvals were given. So this is not something that's starting from scratch, and I guess is that by way of, what do you understand the purpose of Wednesday's, what meeting to be?
I believe it is to do the final land development approval for the Cunningham Field parking lot. So it's in the same posture that this resolution was in, where it's there for the final land development approval.
Do you have any sense, of course you weren't here when we went through the last time, but Jane, do you have any sense that what is now proposed to be finally approved differs in any material respect from what was approved previously?
No, it does not.
Okay. But if anyone is interested in that project, which is a parking lot on Cunningham Field, which is the large athletic field to the east of Chester Road, abutting the SEPTA parking lot on the north side of the tracks, are invited to attend the Planning Commission meeting this week. Would be in this room.
Yes, in this room at 7:30 p.m.
Okay, good. Next, under your committee.
Next, we have an ordinance to consider. This is the ordinance amending Chapter 1286 relating to the requirements for preliminary and final plan review under the Subdivision and Land Development Code. This is the one, and I know you've all reviewed it, where one section is being deleted, Section 2, where the requirement for posting the property and notifying the neighbors was done prior to the final land development approval. This is shifting it to Section 1 and putting it before the preliminary plans are approved.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion that we advertise this change to the ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of enactment of ordinance 1076, amending notification requirements of the Borough Subdivision Land Development Code, say aye.
Well, it's advertising it,
Oh,
right? It's
oh,
not
sorry,
enacting it.
sorry. All those in favor of advertising ordinance 1076, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, authority is given to advertise. Public safety?
Right, so normally we would meet tomorrow night at 7:30, but I can't do it, so I'm proposing that we meet the following Wednesday, March 23rd at 7:30 p.m. I don't, Mary, Mike, and stuff.
Sounds good.
I think that's fine, yeah. That's
Okay.
fine. Maybe
All
there's
right,
something
so we'll-
else that.
No, Jack, yeah.
All right, so we'll meet Wednesday, March 23rd, 7:30 p.m. right here. The only other thing I've got on the agenda for tonight is consideration of Resolution 2016-03. This is a resolution which we reviewed last week in draft form, hasn't changed, which sets the durations for the parking meters that will be set up in Station Square West. And as you can see from the resolution itself, there will be a total of 10 new 12-hour meters on Fieldhouse Lane. There will be 10, I'll call them new, 2-hour meters on Station Square West and 12 4-hour meters. And there's kind of a combination situation in the area in front of the inn there. And then in addition, 3 new 4-hour meters right here on Dartmouth Avenue once the borough lot has been completed. So that's all this resolution does. And I move that council adopt resolution 2016-03.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the adoption of Resolution 2016-03, setting meter duration time, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Say nay. It is adopted.
That's all I have, David.
Thank you. David, Public Works, Parks and Recreation?
Thank you, David. We haven't met since last week, so I don't have a lot new. I do have, do we want to vote on this tonight? I'd like a vote for our authorization to advertise for our street paving program. I've listed streets, we've discussed it, it's been circulated. I'd like to put that to a vote.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of advertising and submitting county aid application for the 2016 street paving program, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There being no nays, it is approved and authorization is given. Anything else for your committee?
Two brief items. We would be set to meet next week. We will not meet next week. Both Lauren and I are out of town. We will take up the aging in place task force recommendations when we meet in April.
Okay. And again, there's the, as the Supreme Court said in Brown versus Board of Education, with all deliberate speed, please. Well, that took the South, 35 years, so that's the time frame.
I can assure you,
Just for perspective.
I can assure you we'll move faster than that. The one final item, and it's somewhat under parks, but it's certainly on the borough property. We like to talk about community and when folks in our community are volunteering. So we currently have underway the Eagle Scout project at the end of my street at Rutgers Field. So it is.
I wondered about that.
It is David. We're just blank.
Oh, you told me too. It's
He runs our track or the SRA track program and has for years, and his son is an Eagle Scout.
It's Andrew.
Thank you,
Andrew.
Andrews.
Andrews. No, it's Andrew. I know.
Anyway, it'll come.
I tell you, being 78, I find this so refreshing. That other people can't think of a name.
I'll get to the facts.
Armor.
Andrew
Armor,
Armour.
that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's your name?
So, young Mr. Armour is redoing the track service as his
Really?
Eagle Scout project.
You're
And
kidding
that
me.
is the entire quarter-mile track. They have some equipment, they have some volunteers.
The kid driving the Bobcat?
The kid is doing, as Andrew said, it's his project, not my project. But he came before the SRA board for our approval, and we gave him some money for it. It's the school district's property, so they had to go to them and speak to them. But they are clearing it, which is probably the biggest job, and they have probably a ton of
Cinder.
excess grass,
Okay.
what is growing out. So he's taking it down, they're going to re-cinder it, level it, and then taper it so it drains appropriately. But Andrew, his father's on our SRA track program for more than a decade and was a volunteer of the year last year. But anyway, it's a great town project on public property, and that it's the school districts, but the school district has let it go to seed.
Right.
So it's a great project. So I just wanted to give him some kudos.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Mayor?
Not too much since last week. Obviously, the Central Park project is moving forward, and they were even working today in the kind of nasty weather. They're making good progress. When you go out and look, you can kind of see the shape of things already because new curbs are going in and the expanded green space and the plaza area. It's good to see. And we do have an Eagle Scout project associated with that as well, where the shed for the Horticultural Society can be built as an Eagle Scout project. So it's nice to have the Eagle Scouts in.
Peter Armour is the son's name. Sorry.
Okay. Go.
And the last thing about that is that I would note that parking is a little bit more difficult in the borough now because the parking lot is offline. It's a little more crowded, but it's important that we keep up enforcement of the parking regulations now because we do want spaces to turn over. We want people to come and go and use the spaces and everything else. So we're going to continue to enforce our parking regulations and keep people moving in and out. And we look forward to a spring with a brand new Central Park.
What do you, in turn, after, I understand this is a stage project, but after the lot proper is done and paved so it could be returned to parking, the work will go on because other parts of it. How do you envision or understand the ongoing work will be done and what effect it will have on the borough till it is completed in terms of anything? Such as, my understanding is the wall, in some phase of this project, the wall that you parked against facing Park Avenue something happens to that. Now, does that happen to it in this phase of the project or after, in the later phase of the project?
Well, the reason, it's not strictly a phased project, the reason that you kind of refer to it that way is because the contractor is under the gun to finish the parking lot, to get that
I understand.
up and working again as quickly as possible. So there's no, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. Things are going to be progressing at the same time. So the wall you talk about in particular is a low retaining wall which is going up on the parking lot side along Park Avenue.
Right.
What it's going to serve to do is level out the planting bed so that things can grow there better than they grow there now. And also it becomes like almost like a sitting wall for events and things like that occur when people aren't necessarily parking there. It also kind of cleans up that edge of that whole thing now in terms of how it kind of works. Because one of the prime reasons behind the way the thing was designed was that it was supposed to kind of streamline the parking and make the parking wider, spaces wider, but also more efficient in terms of the way people go in and out, which is why it's going to be one way now. We have less open swaths of
Driving area.
Driving area kind of thing, how that sort of works. So that's going to be done in sort of mid-April is when the parking lot should be up and open again.
Okay, because
And then-
you really have to attack that presumably from the parking area side.
Right.
Right.
So that wall will be, they haven't said it specifically, but my impression is that wall will be done. And then all the heavy concrete work will be done before that, including the footings for the shade sail structure that's going over the amphitheater. So some of those footings are 10 feet deep, in order to support that pole that's sticking up to hold the sail and make that work. In the springtime, I think probably in mid-April is when the rammed earth work is going to start. And there's a rammed earth artist, master type person who's a Massey Burke. She's a Swarthmore alum, art history actually. That's her degree. But she's coming in, and for 3 weeks she'll be here and working with volunteers from the town and from the college to actually use literally ram the earth that they're going to,
Okay.
which is now stockpiled up at the college.
Okay, thanks, very helpful. And then that whole area that is the green space that is between the parking lot and Dartmouth will be presumably done after the parking has
Well,
been returned.
certainly the plantings will come later than that. They'll be doing, one of the first things they did, you may or may not notice that they dug a very large infiltration bed underneath where the actual plaza park is done. And that's done at this point. So, and the paving stones for the people purchased for inscriptions have all been ordered and they're being made right now, and hopefully they'll all come in. And so it's not so much that the parking lot's going to be done, then everything else is going to be done, but that the whole thing's going to progress.
Okay,
as it
thank you.
goes on.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Dave.
Solicitor, anything this evening? Jane?
No,
Good luck tomorrow.
thank you.
Any other business for us this evening?
Adjourn.
Is there a second?
Thanks.
We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.